you are thinking of entering into a franchise agreement, before you hand any money over or you make any commitment to hand any money over, it is essential that you obtain a copy of their standard form of franchise agreement and you have a solicitor look at it. And the reason for that is it increases your ability to make changes to it, and also it would enable you to walk away.
Before you spend any money?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Because once you've handed over the money, which, by the way, 90% of people that I see about franchise agreements have always done in advance, once you've spent the money, you're just not, in reality, you're really just not going to walk away from the agreement, and you're going to find yourself putting up with things which you may have been able to negotiate your way out of, because the franchisor also realises that once they have your upfront money, it's easier for them to say no to certain things. I mean, there are all sorts of things in franchise agreements. You'll find, if you've ever entered into an employment contract, you will probably see in that contract a provision which says that you're on a trial period initially, maybe 3 months, 6 months, on a trial period, and if either party aren't happy with the other, it can be maybe 1 week's notice, and that's that. Well, franchise agreements have trial periods as well, 3 months, 6 months, and the franchisor can say, look, if we don't think you're responding to the training in the way we'd like you to be, we can bring this franchise agreement to an end. However, you won't be getting your money back. Now, you might think, well, that's a pretty ghastly provision to have to deal with, but quite often it's in the agreement and people cannot get out of it because they've already handed the money over anyway.
And are these the sort of things that can get changed? You can maybe get provisions to get some of the cash back if they decide that they don't want to use you, or is that something which is not really negotiable with them?
You can change anything.
It's whether they agree to it, of course.
Yeah, it's whether they agree to it, and it's how many things you want to change. In my view, you have to be very pragmatic, and you have to say to yourself, they're not going to let me change a lot. It's important from a franchisor's point of view to not have hundreds of different agreements flying around. You can't administer your business if every franchise agreement you've entered into with every person you deal with is different. However, by the same token, franchisors do accept, despite what they perhaps say in the initial sort of information and narrative that they give to potential franchisees, they do understand they're going to have to change 1 or 2 things, and they tend to make 3, 4, maybe 5 exceptions on every agreement, but they won't let you change a lot. And yes, the trial period and money coming back is something that can be changed. I mean, let me give you an example without sort of delving too much into the pocket, because this is relevant for all commercial agreements. If you've got a provision in an agreement which says, if we're not happy with you after 3 months, we can bring this agreement to a close and you won't get your upfront money back, well, that's not right. But maybe it should say, if we're not happy with you and we're looking at things reasonably, you don't get your money back. Well, that's a better situation. There's a difference there. And as long as within the franchise agreement the franchisor has to act reasonably, you can protect a franchisee against most things. Cannot refuse to renew the franchise, or cannot unreasonably refuse to renew the franchise. It's much better than we'll make a decision towards the end of the franchise agreement and can decide what they like. You see, these are the kind of protections that you hope to get. Ultimately, if you haven't complied with the franchise agreement or you haven't turned a profit in an area which the franchisor believes should be a profitable territory area, then it's probably fair enough that they want to seek to enter into a franchise with someone else. But what you don't want is a situation in which you've been very successful, have built up a valuable franchise arrangement, and they can bring that franchise to an end and then essentially sell it on to someone else for probably a considerable premium because of all the goodwill and custom that you've generated in the area.
Yeah, so it's basically it's the fairness in the terms that we're talking about.
It is, yes.
So the key issue to this, the key learning that people should get from this is, if they are thinking of going into a franchise agreement of some description, the very first need before they part with any cash is to get a vanilla copy of the agreement. So not one that's specifically for them, because then they have to pay some cash to get that, but a vanilla copy of the agreement which a franchise company will obviously be able to provide them, and then take that agreement and take it to someone like yourself so they can go through it together and come up with any changes that you want to make, and then pick the ones that are the priorities.
Absolutely. It's very important. Again, just because you get that contract up front, you haven't handed any money over yet, I still don't think you'll quite get your 15 changes, but you should get your 5, and at least before you hand the money over, you will know what you're getting yourself into. Okay? I mean, ultimately, I think the most important thing is you're happy with the franchise, and we don't want to brand all franchisors as difficult parties to deal with. They have tremendous brands which they absolutely have to protect for the good of all the franchisees. And as a franchisee, you want a franchisor to have strong franchise agreements out there in the wider world, because you're essentially sharing in that brand and goodwill. Yeah, but what you have to be able to do, and it's absolutely essential, is you have to be able to run your own business, you have to feel like you're running your own business, and you have to have a fair commercial footing and relationship with the franchisor. If you cannot get that and you cannot establish that, then you need to consider very carefully whether or not it's the right deal for you.
Phil, that's absolutely fantastic advice, and I think that is the key thing out of that is just get a contract first, give it to someone like yourself, and work out exactly what you want to do from there. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Phil. That's absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Andy.